Hi. Now we have Mr. Ralston, who's been living here in Malaysia for
15 years, Jeffrey.
15 years.
Absolutely.
And on Malaysia, my second home.
Right again.
Okay. Very good.
Yes, and
just tell people what
if I may say so, I think that's worked extremely well. I've in fact even rolled it over for my second application.
Excellent.
And none of it was of concern. It was seamless, effortless.
That's great, because a lot of people think, well, it's when you get MM2H, Malaysia My Second Home visa, for expats to live in Malaysia, it's only got 10-year life. And then what happens if there's a change in the government's attitude in that time? But you've already been through the first 10 years and seamlessly rolled it to the second.
Absolutely, and as I said before, Jeff, it's seamless.
Very good. So tell us, what's the benefits you find? Why have you stayed in Malaysia for 15 years?
Well, like you, I'm from Australia, and I've been living away from home now for something around 20 years. The first 4 or 5 of which was spent in Singapore, and that was good, but Singapore, as you know, is extremely expensive. And at the end of the day, I found you could replace the Singapore dollar with the ringgit sign or symbol, and it brought you more or less 3 times as much.
3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything here, from accommodation, food, petrol, car, the works. I find it significantly cheaper. And one thing we mustn't forget is that it's still a safe place to live.
So the local people are friendly?
Extremely, extremely. And
accommodating, friendly?
Most definitely, and I can honestly say to you the fact that they speak English, and most of them speak English, so communication certainly is not an issue.
And safety, you feel safe out around the streets at the night? What about health services?
Look, Malaysia has changed dramatically in the 15 years that I've lived here. When I first came here, one had to go literally looking or driving for half an hour to get a decent cup of coffee. But with the introduction of the Iskandar, that's changed dramatically for Westerners who enjoy a steak or something nice to drink, a glass of wine. You can. It's readily available today. Health, we've had Columbia Hospital, plus Gleneagles as well. KPJ. So I think the medical scene is pretty well covered.
Yeah, good, and high quality medical as well.
Indeed.
Yeah, and a range of foods. There's lots of good food.
Well, so the nice thing in Malaysia, of course, is that it's multicultural. So in that sense, you can have Indian food, Malay food, Chinese food, Western food. Or if you go into Malacca, you've got the Peranakan, which is a combination of the Malay and the Chinese, the Nonya. Yeah. So eating good, fresh food, and particularly seafood, not an issue. And it's cheap.
And the climate here, you like the climate?
Well, yes, I do, simply because I don't have to worry about what I have to take out, having lived in Melbourne. And where you get all seasons in one day, here you are more or less guaranteed anything between 24 and 34 Celsius every day, 365 days of the year.
And no tsunami, no cyclone,
no tsunami, no natural disasters, so that's very, very positive. Of course, the issue I have today is when I first came here, there was a well-defined dry and wet season that is now interchangeable.
So what's the worst of a wet season? What's the worst day in the wet season?
But look, having lived in Melbourne where it could rain for days on end non-stop, the beauty of, and being a golfer, and there are great golf courses in Johor, and in mainland Malaysia. The lovely thing is, it could bucket down with rain for an hour. The greens could have 3 inches of water lying on the greens, and you're playing an hour later. So the lovely thing is, it does rain. It rains heavily, but it's not all day. You know, worst case might be for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So it's good. Yeah.
Very good. What else makes you love staying here? 15 years, a long time.
Yeah, it is, Jeff, but I've made lots of new friends. As I said, I like the climate, it's safe, very cost effective, and the beauty is to travel overseas. I mean, KL by car from where I live in Johor is only a 3-hour drive.
And from where you live to Singapore?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Very good.
So it's, I would certainly say to any friend who asked me, I'd be very positive towards living in Malaysia.
Very good.
And particularly on the MM2H.
Thank you, Mr. Ralston.
My pleasure, Jeffrey.
It's a pleasure. Hello. We're here with Greg, and Greg's marketing manager for Raffles American School. So tell us about your experience, Greg, in living in Malaysia.
I've been in Malaysia now 3 years, yeah, it's the first time living in Malaysia. I've lived offshore in other countries previously, but this is my first time in Malaysia, and can say it's a very enjoyable experience.
And you find it economic, safe, good health care, good food?
I'd say in terms of cost of living, it's one of the cheapest countries anyone could experience. When comparing to where I'm from, Australia, it's about a third of the cost of living in most aspects. So very, very cheap. In terms of quality of life, very good. In terms of the accommodation options are good, high quality. The food is very good, good choice of food, and good quality as well.
People friendly?
Yeah, very. There's a big expat community, and locals are very friendly to expats. I've experienced in Malaysia.
And medical services?
Yeah, medical services are very good. I have a hospital that's 5 minutes from my home.
It's Glen Eagles,
It's
yeah?
Glen Eagles Hospital,
Yep,
that's correct. With emergency facilities, so very easy to access. No difficulty in terms of language with accessing those services, and very, like the rest of the nation in terms of cost of living, it's very cost competitive.
And obviously with Raffles American School, it's a very high level of education here.
Yes, it is. I would say they have a government structure of accreditation and registration of all their schools and institutions. I'd say the standard of education is on par with other developed countries around the world, particularly in the private sector.
Right. So you would happily live here for a long time in Malaysia, retire here?
Yeah, I'd certainly recommend it. I have plans to return to Australia myself at the end of contract, which is in about another year's time. But I'd recommend it to anyone, and I would consider returning for retirement.
Very good. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And just to see, this is what we're overlooking at the moment, which is very pleasant. Thanks, Greg. Bye. Good morning. This is Jerry, and Jerry is living in Malaysia for how long now?
6 years.
6 years.
Yes. Yeah, I was in Singapore for 15, but just moved to Malaysia after a friend of mine moved here, and I found it was a lot more economical to live here. For instance, we've got this 3-story, 5,000 square feet semi-detached, they call it here, but it's a very comfortable. It's brand new when we moved in. We're paying 5,000 ringgit a month, which is, I guess, in Australian dollars, probably equivalent to about 1,500 a month. So basically, looked at buying, but at the moment, prices are coming down, and there's tremendous opportunities to buy condos. There's thousands of them being built for sale, but with the cost of a condo and the cost of rental, it's far more advantageous to rent than buy.
Well, just spin this around, you can get some view of this very luxurious accommodation that Jerry's living in, right next to the golf course, and swimming pool and gym just 2 minutes away. So, what are the other advantages, Jerry, of living in Malaysia?
Well, I think one of the major advantages is on the medical side. As I say, since I've been here in the 6 years, I had an enlarged prostate, which was operated on here, and thoroughly satisfied with the operation. There were no after effects. I've had both my eyes, the cataracts in my eyes done. I've had some dental work, and everything that I've had done has been very, very reasonable. The biggest saving, I had a parathyroid gland which was producing too much calcium. So I inquired in Singapore, at that Singapore hospital, as to the cost in New Zealand and Australia, obviously being from there. And they all said it was around 25 to 30,000 Singapore dollars. However, I was put on to a surgeon in KL at the Putrajaya private public hospital, and I attended that hospital for the operation, and which has been totally successful. That was 3 years ago, and the cost of that was under 2,000 Singapore dollars.
It's amazing.
Just amazing. And you know, I had my own room in the hospital. I was there for a week. 25 to 30,000 quoted in Singapore didn't include a week's stay in the hospital, which would be 1,000 a day approximately.
Do you mind telling how old you are, Jerry?
Can I whisper it? I'm 81 years of age.
Amazing for 81. Must be a good quality. What about the friendliness of the people here? Do you find?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know, I have 15 years in Singapore. Singapore's totally different socially to Malaysia. People, it's a lot more relaxing here. Within 10 kilometres of our house, we have access to 6 supermarkets, and the produce comes from all over. Comes from certainly some from Malaysia, but from Australia, New Zealand. The meat we can get prime quality meat from Australia, New Zealand. And the price is very attractive. And eating in restaurants, there are many restaurants here. You can buy certainly Malaysian food, but you can buy Chinese, Japanese, Western, and very high quality.
French, Italian?
Yes, they're all here.
And if you went to a top quality restaurant and had a 2-course meal and a bottle of wine, what would it cost you roughly in Australian dollars?
Australian dollars, probably a nice bottle of wine, maybe a Shiraz or something, Australian Shiraz something. Australian dollars, 50 to 60 Australian dollars.
For the whole meal with the wine?
For everything, yes.
Which is pretty good.
It's great. Yeah.
And security here, safety, you're not worried about things?
No. My colleague and I, we both drive, and around the place, I go as far away as 30 or 40 kilometres to play golf, and that's the other good thing for golfers. The golf courses here are fantastic, and the cost of golf, the cost of playing a golf course, 150 ringgit, which is divided by 3 for Australian and New Zealand dollars, but buying goods, clothing is cheap. You know, clothing is very cheap.
And food generally?
Sporting goods, food is cheap.
A day-to-day living is about 1/5 of Singapore, or 1/5 of Australia.
Singapore's very expensive, very expensive. But Malaysia's, yes, as I say, the products you buy to cook, we do a lot of cooking, so the products you buy are very cheap. You can buy just about a month's supply for 200 ringgit, you know.
Which is about $70.
Yeah.
And you've got very good medical here, like Gleneagles Hospital, KPJ Hospital,
Yes.
Regency Hospital, very internationally high-class medical.
Absolutely.
there.
Well, the Gleneagles was owned by a Singaporean group, and yes, I actually had an occasion to go there last week, and wow, it's as clean as any hospital I've seen in the West.
So you're waiting to apply for MM2H, yeah?
Yes, well, I've decided that having been born in Sydney, I'm used to hot weather. I found that I lived in New Zealand for 30 years, but as you get older, of course, you can't take the cold as much, and the cold wind and the miserable climate. In other words, the atmosphere is very damp, and it's hard. It can take a long time to dry your clothes. Just hanging
That's
them
in
up.
Sydney, New Zealand, not here.
No, in New Zealand.
Yeah.
In New Zealand, yes.
But
New
here
Zealand,
is-
yeah. In Auckland, New Zealand.
Oh,
Sydney, New Zealand. Come on.
but here, the atmosphere is very...
Well, for instance, I play golf every Sunday with a group of guys, expats from all over, from the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and the US, and I wash my golf clothing on the Saturday night and hang it up, and Sunday morning it's as dry as a bone, you know, and it's drying. It's drying half an hour, so it's...
And one of the beauties is that the temperature is always somewhere between 23 degrees Celsius and 33 degrees Celsius, 24 hours
Yes,
a day.
yeah.
There's no natural disasters, no typhoon, no cyclone, no earthquake, no tsunami.
No, there's nothing like
It's
that.
really quite...
No, we get the occasional electrical storm, but you know that brings a lot of rain, which helps our garden because we're growing our own herbs there, it's usually over and done within an hour, and obviously the air's a lot cooler after that. But all in all, the climate is very, very pleasant. You know, it really is.
So overall, Malaysia's the place you want to retire and live till you
Yes,
finish?
well, you know, I'm 81, but I mean, I don't intend to kick the bucket at this stage or in an early stage. I want to enjoy my life. I've got a business that I run from here in Singapore. It's in Singapore. We can't go to Singapore currently because of COVID. Yes, MM2H is the way I can stay here legally, and this is a base. I can still travel, but obviously we don't know what the future holds in terms of being able to stay here. But MM2H is one of the ways that I can stay here.
Thank you, Jerry. Thumbs up for Malaysia.
Fantastic. See you in Malaysia.
All right, bye-bye.